This is chapter 2, page 32. We're going to start with geology. On this page, what you need to know is what drives plate tectonics and how these three layers are a part of that. The core, there's chemical reactions going on in the core, and that's going to cause the mantle to heat up and via convection currents, and then that's going to move the lithosphere, which are the plates and includes the crust. You have to know on page 33 all of the plate boundaries and what happens in each one. So there are three main kinds of plate boundaries. The first one is divergent. Two plates are spreading or are moving apart from each other, and that causes magma to rise up from the mantle, and something called seafloor spreading happens where new crust, it's oceanic crust, except for in Iceland. Iceland is not, it's not oceanic crust. It's actually happening on land there, but it usually happens in the ocean, and so new land forms here. I'm sorry, and that can cause this rift valley. This is also where hydrothermal vents occur, where chemosynthesis happens. It can also cause earthquakes as well. And the famous divergent plate boundary is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge right here. So it goes to the Atlantic Ocean. It's very large, but you can see in Iceland is actually growing because it has new crust being formed right here. And there's a lot of geothermal activity in Iceland happening. The second plate boundary is transform, also called strike slip fault. And that is where the plates are sliding apart from each other or against each other. And that is going to cause that change from potential to kinetic energy. It's going to cause an earthquake. And then convergent plate boundaries there's two kinds. The first kind is with two different kinds of crusts, oceanic and continental. Oceanic crust is more dense than continental, so it's going to slide below the oceanic crust, and that is also called subduction. It's going to subduct underneath, and that causes this trench. It's going to subduct, and it's going to heat up this crust. It's going to cause pressure to form, and then it can be released via a volcano. This is how the island of Japan was formed. There's a convergent plate boundary right there, and it's also what caused the tsunami to occur in 2015, I believe. And what happened during that tsunami is the plate was subducting, but actually snapped back. It caused an earthquake, and it also caused a displacement of water, which causes tsunami. And then there's another kind of convergent plate boundary where there's two continental crusts colliding and forming mountains. Since they're the same density, subduction doesn't occur like it does here. And so here is a map of plate boundaries. You can look at the key to see what all of these types are. But you should know the San Andreas Fault right here is a transform plate boundary, and it causes those earthquakes in California. And then the Mid-Atlantic Ridge right here. Japan is right here, and it is along a convergent boundary. That's how those volcanoes formed, and then because of subduction. And then the Himalayan mountains here are also convergent, but it's continental, so form those large mountains. And so all the information I just told you right here in these two sticky notes. So read these to see what they're all about. So what you need to know are what volcanic arcs are. So that is like Japan and the Aleutians in Alaska. One oceanic plate subducts beneath another. It pushes magma up and it makes islands. So that's right here, right there. It's going to cause islands. Volcanic islands. And sometimes water is displaced and it can cause tsunamis. For the rock cycle, you don't really need to know the rock cycle at all for apes, but you do need to know that the type of rock in a region affects soil characteristics and plant life. So the basis of soil is rock, or also called parent material. So whenever that rock breaks down into smaller pieces, when it weathers and when it erodes and it makes sediments, that's the precursor of soil. So whatever nutrients or minerals that are in the rock, those are going to be present in the soil as well, and it's going to give soil its unique characteristic in that region, and also it's going to help form or help certain plants live in that environment. On this page, and there's examples of the most common components of soil pertaining to rocks. There's granite and basalt. And basalt is what the oceanic crust is usually made of. And granite is usually found on land. And then also know what sediments are. So sediments are rocks that are weathered, particles of rock that are weathered and eroded. And also they can create soil. So we're going to go on to page 37. Know how an earthquake forms and how an earthquake occurs. So when plates are sliding against each other, or they're moving apart, or they're subducting, or however they're interacting with each other, when tension builds up, or potential energy builds up, and then all of a sudden that energy gets released as kinetic energy, it's going to cause an earthquake. So read about that here. Also know what the ring of fire is right here. That is all along the Pacific plate. There are many volcanoes, and there are also many earthquakes that occur over here, and there's a lot of activity, a lot of plate activity along this. There's Japan, there is California, Mexico, South America, the Aleutian Islands. So another ring of fire. Also know, actually I'm going to go back to show you one thing. Right here, smack dab in the middle of the Pacific plate. The Pacific plate is very large, but in the middle are the Hawaiian Islands, and those were actually formed by a hot spot. And that is just a magma rising from the center of crust. So as the plate moves, that island is going to grow longer and longer. And there's a picture of that right here. So know this figure and know this caption of hot spots. So yeah, no volcano, no hot spots here. And then on page 42, know what a landslide is. Okay, and that's it for chapter 2.